So at the beginning of the podcast, I talked about that I wanted to talk about UFC Fight Night, December 18th. We got the Black Beast, Derrick Lewis, coming back. The always fun Knockout King versus Chris Daukaus. This is going to be December 18th. It's going to be a fun one. This card is one of those that is a low-key stacked card, one of those real fun ones that, and especially the last event of the year. I think this is one that we all have to watch out for. This is one that's got some real fighters on here, meaning that some of these are you can't miss fights. Just to name a few, obviously we got Derrick Lewis, who we all know him for those amazing knockouts, for those amazing, just the great fights, the great post-fight interviews that he has. We got Stephen Wonderboy Thompson on this card. We got Belal Muhammad on this card, Angela Hill, Diego Ferreira, one of my favorites, Cub Swanson, versus one of my favorites, Derek the Damage Elkins. In the prelims, interestingly enough, we have Justin Tafa. I've always loved him. Hopefully he can get a win. And, Harry is really good as well. But just saying that Justin Tafa is on a little bit of a skid. Hopefully he doesn't get his 3 fights lost. We got Raquel Pennington, former challenger, and she's the 3rd fight on the prelims. So I think this is a great card. Eubanks is on this card as well. She's always fun to watch. Gerald Mershaw is on this card. And Gerald Mershaw, and I hope your first fight watching him wasn't the one where he got knocked out brutally, but we all know how special he is, what kind of fights he puts on. Okay, so let's talk about all of these fights. Let's go through some of them. Let's talk about Derrick Lewis versus Chris Daukaus. Like I said at the top of this section of the podcast, Derrick Lewis, always fun to watch. Knockout King versus Chris Daukaus. Derrick Lewis has been on kind of a run. It's been a little bit shaky at some points. Last fight was a loss against Cyril Gahn, but he did get a couple great wins actually versus Curtis Blades, the wrestler who everybody is scared of in that heavyweight division. Olenek, Alir Latifi, I believe that was his first fight in heavyweight. At lightweight, he was a monster. Losing to the top of the food chain, JDS, he lost to Daniel Cormier in 2018 in New York. What a big venue, what a big card that was. And to lose in that is it's not like you can really you can't really say much against that, right? It's Daniel Cormier at the end of the day. But his last fight was a loss to the person who's going to be challenging for the belt next. So that makes you a little bit, more happy. Obviously you don't want to ever lose, but when the guy that you lost to is fighting for the belt next, I mean, it does give you a little bit of barometer of where you're at in the division. Obviously, we know that Derrick Lewis has fought the champion before. One of the least active fights ever in the UFC. But we all know why. Both of these guys can throw bombs. I'm talking about the champion and Derrick Lewis, and both of them were worried about that situation. Now, I think that the interesting part about this fight is the fact that Derrick Lewis, number 3, is fighting Chris Daukaus, number 7. He had a great win, TKO win, against his opponent Shamail, at UFC 266, which was in December. You could see how elusive he was. If you haven't watched him fight, I would totally recommend watching him fight. I believe that the UFC did post one of those free fight uh, fight clips or whatever on their YouTube page. But he also defeated Oleinik and a couple other great wins. He's been on a really good run. 5 fights, won so far in a row. His last fight was in Cage FC, Cage Fury, and that was in 2019. After that, he won another one in Cage Fury. Then he went to the UFC. This is going to be his 5th fight in the UFC. And his last 3 fights, he's got performance of the night. So he's really exciting to watch. If you watch his last fight, he had a lot of great movement in that fight. You could see that he's very clean. He's very crisp when he fights, especially for heavyweight. We just saw the 155-pound champion defeat Dustin Poirier. A lot of those same points could be applied to Chris Daukaus. Obviously, he does have some heavyweight tendencies where he just throws some crazy bombs and muscles his way through some stuff. But the in and out movement that he showed was, I think, really important. It's bringing in this new era of heavyweight fighters like Cyril Gane. I think Chris Daukaus is like that. Obviously, I think Cyril Gane is a little bit more mobile. He's a little bit more in and out movement. He's using a lot more of the stances that the lower weight divisions use. But I think that Chris Daukaus, the movement that he has, the attitude that he has. At one point, Shamil was trying to give him a fist bump, but Chris slapped it away, gave him the middle finger, and then kept on fighting. And in that round, the second round, well, in the first round, he clipped him real bad. The camera angle didn't show it properly at first, but Chris clipped him real bad, and it was really close. It looked like it only touched a hair on his beard, but when the replay switched angles, you got him clean on the jaw, all the spit flying and all that kind of stuff, and then dropped him. And then in the second round, I think that the attitude that he has, the in and out movement that he has, the reset that he has, whenever he throws a punch, he always has his hands up. His hands up are on defense. His hands up are on offense. He doesn't have the crazy trunk movement that we see in boxing, but we won't see that in MMA that much. He has a lot more of that in and out movement. Skipping in, skipping out. And I think it's great movement, especially for the heavyweight division. I think it freezes a lot of his opponents. They're like, what the heck's going on here? I haven't seen a heavyweight do this. And especially when fighters are training for that sort of thing, it's hard to find training partners for that. Like I said, Derrick Lewis, knockout king. We all know what he's going to do at this point now. His cardio has got a lot better, but at the end of the day, this guy is just looking for the knockout. This guy has had some times where he's been taken down and he wasn't able to get back up. He just kind of laid there. The Daniel Cormier fight comes to mind. But, he's improving, especially in his takedown defense. And I think that Chris Daukaus is a perfect fight for him. I think it's a good fight for both of these guys. If you think about it, the in and out movement really could be a key factor for Chris winning because of the movement of Derrick Lewis, or the lack of it sometimes. And then for Derrick Lewis, it's someone that wants to stand and trade and is really hyper aggressive. So I think it's a good thing for both of these fighters. I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be a great fight, especially whoever wins is going to win in a devastating way. Let's look at the other fights on the card quickly. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is taking on Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad, he is coming off his last fight where he got that win against Damian Maia. Some of the crowd was booing in that fight, which I thought was unfortunate, especially if you know that Damian Maia is so dangerous on the ground. There were some points where Damian Maia was just kind of like, when a kid like grabs onto your leg and you're dragging him across the room, he was just trying to get Belal Muhammad down to the ground. He was just, I don't know, he was using all of his force to take him down. Before that, it was a very controversial Leon Edwards fight. It was Leon Edwards versus Belal Muhammad, UFC Fight Night, March 2021. There was that gruesome eye poke against Belal Muhammad, and it was considered a no contest. Very unfortunate situation, but he came back in June with that Damian Maia win. But before that, he's facing some good fighters. Diego Lima, Lyman Good. He lost to Jeff Neal. We just saw Jeff Neal fight, even though it wasn't the best fight. But you could see the talent that Jeff Neal possesses. Even his coaches were screaming at him that they know that they have a better fighter than that. But Jeff Neal, he is the real deal, and to lose to him is no big deal. Belal Muhammad facing the UFC veteran, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, aka Stephen Wonderman Thompson. He's getting up there in age. I mean, he is, how old is he now? He's 38. So, which is not like super old compared to the heavyweights, compared to the heavier weights, but for this 170-pound division to be in the game for so long, and his only knockout loss so far has been against Anthony Showtime Pettis. And I believe that was Showtime's last fight in the UFC. And that was that one where he pushed his back up against the cage and then went in for that Superman punch off the rebound. But then he came back and won against Vicente Luque, won against Jeff Neal, who we were just talking about, but then lost to Gilbert Burns. I mean, I think this is one of those things where you're losing to the top of the food chain, but you're winning against the people that you're supposed to win against. Jeff Neal, a striker, a guy that fancies himself a striker. You win against Vicente Luque. He likes to throw bombs. We know his jiu-jitsu is great, but if you go into a firefight with him, he's down to fight. And he won against him. Darren Till, Anthony Pettis, those are getting at the top of the food chain. The Darren Till fight, I know it was a unanimous decision win, but from what I recall, the fight in 2018 was a little bit, it wasn't controversial. It was just, it was a tough fight for both of them. And Till missing weight didn't help the situation at all. And then Wonderboy still took the fight. It was in Liverpool. They really wanted to, they still really wanted to fight. So they had a catchweight bout at 175.5, which may have played a favor in that fight. It was an unfortunate situation, and but it goes down in the record books. That's the worst part about it. But then before that, he defeated George Masvidal, lost to Tyron Woodley, had that back and forth with Tyron Woodley, having the draw at first, but then throughout all of these fights, He's still a dangerous opponent. He's still one of the trickiest strikers that you will ever see in the UFC. And he's a tough fight for anybody. Okay, so I'll go quickly through the rest of the fights. I think you got to watch out for Angela Hill's fight. Angela Hill, number 12, but still, especially she's gaining a lot of popularity. She's winning a lot more of her fights. And I mean, I think this is someone that you just got to look out for in this division. Yeah, she did lose her last fight against Tisha Torres, but Tisha Torres, you can't ever count her out. No matter how many fights that she's lost, you can't ever count her out. Ricky Simone, you always got to watch out for him. The bantamweight division is on fire, and you have to look out for each one of these prospects that are in this division. Not just prospects. He's unranked at the moment, but he is somewhat well established. Diego Ferreira, Cub Swanson versus Derrick Elkins. I think it's a great fight for these two veterans. It might be some of their last fights. I think we just got to take this opportunity and really live in the moment. It might be one of the last times we see either one of these guys fight, because Cub Swanson is still fighting the top of his food chain fighters. Giga was just a tough test for him, and he's someone that's just gonna fly through the division, and it's no use being worried about losing to Giga, and he's not. Derrick the Damage Elkins is on a nice 2-fight winning streak. He's one of those fighters that gets busted up like the Nate and Nick. You could throw a piece of paper at the guy and he'll start bleeding, and he always is down for an amazing fight. He's always there to put on the damage and get the damage. So I think it's going to be a fun fight. Cub Swanson versus Derrick Elkins. Okay, so we got to watch out for this middleweight bout. Jeremy Shaw is in this fight. Let's see how he does. I know he did have a fight after his Hamza Chimaev fight, and he won 2 of those fights by submission. But a lot of people just have it in the back of their mind that he lost in such spectacular fashion to Hamza Chimaev. That guy's on a run, but we still got to watch out for Jeremy Shaw. He was on a run before he met up with Hamza Chimaev, and what an amazing grappler. So watch out for his grappling ability. If it goes to the ground, I think it'd be a fun one. Justin Tafa, I just love the way that he fights. He's so aggressive. He comes from that Bam Bam camp, also that Mark Hunt camp. I believe he does. Even if he doesn't, he still fights like them, and they're some of my favorite fighters to watch. Heavyweight bout. He's one of those smaller guys that likes being in the heavyweight division and going against those big boys, and I love it. It's the greatest. Raquel Pennington, let's just watch out for this fight, because at the end of the day, it's a former challenger, and she's number 3 in this card. And on top of that, making her, she's fighting in the featherweight division, which is a division that is not well stacked up, meaning there aren't that many fighters in that division, and we need more bodies in that division, especially if Kayla Harrison might be joining, if anybody might be joining. We just need more bodies in that division, and having a former challenger is such a big deal. Massive. So we got to watch out for that one. Okay, So those are all the fights that I wanted to talk about for this last UFC event for the year of 2021. I think it was a great year of fights. We'll talk more about it. We'll talk more this week. I think it was really enjoyable going through the whole card. I think this is a fun low-key card that we got to watch out for.